Hi dear students, welcome to Kavitha's NEET classes. In this lecture, we shall discuss connective tissues. In my previous few lectures, I have already discussed what is a tissue, what are the different four types of tissues. So basically in human beings, we have four kinds of tissues, that is epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue and neural tissue. So I have already posted 3 videos on epithelial tissues and I will also provide the links of those videos in the description box and in the I button. So please check those videos before you come back to this video. Connective tissues. Connective tissues are the most abundant and most widely distributed tissue in the human body. As the name suggests, what do we mean by connect? It links, isn't it? So connective tissues are the tissues which link tissues and organs throughout the body, and that is why they are the most abundant and they are the most widely distributed tissue in our body. So the major functions of the connective tissues are, as we know, the name itself suggests that connective tissue connects, it binds. So it binds tissues with organs. So we have different organs and different tissues in our body. So linking all of this, that is the prime most important function carried out by the connective tissue. So the functions of connective tissue include binding, support, okay, it provides a support, protection. We have certain cells in the connective tissue like the mast cells, macrophages, which are basically immune cells which protect us from the bacterium or other organisms which are trying to infect us and create disease in us. So they also have functions of protection, insulation. So under connective tissues we have adipose tissue, we have areolar tissue which are present just below the skin. And there they help us in keeping the body warm, isn't it? The fat cells provide insulation, it keeps our body warm. So they have the function of insulation and transportation as well. So if you see, what does the connective tissue consist of? It consists of cells which secrete fibers and modified polysaccharides. So you can see the cells, the tissue, that is the connective tissue, is made up of 3 important components. They are the fibers, the ground substance and the cells. So it is the cell which secretes the fibers as well as the ground substance. Okay, so connective tissue is comprised of 3 important components, that is the fibers, the ground substance and the cell. And it is the cells which secrete. Cells are the ones which secrete the fibers. Fibers are nothing but proteins, isn't it? Proteins like collagen, elastin. So these are secreted by these cells. Proteins like collagen, elastin, so these are the proteins which are secreted by the cells and they are fibers in nature. That's why we call them as fibers. And in addition to that, they also secrete modified polysaccharides. So the connective tissue is composed of a matrix in which the cells are suspended. So it is these cells which secrete the fibers as well as the complex or modified polysaccharides which form the matrix. Okay. So did you understand little bit about connective tissue? Connective tissue is the most abundant and it is widely distributed because it links various organs and tissues present in the body, and it has 3 important components: the cells, fibers and the matrix. So it is the cell which secretes both the matrix as well as the fibers. Fibers are nothing but the proteins like collagen and elastin which have fibers in nature, and that is why we call them as fibers. So now we can look into the classification of the connective tissues. So connective tissues can be classified into loose connective tissue, dense connective tissue and specialized connective tissue. Okay, there are three kinds of connective tissue, that is loose connective tissue, dense connective tissue and specialized connective tissue. So in this lecture we will be discussing only the loose connective tissues like areolar and adipose tissue, and in the next lecture we will be discussing about dense connective tissues and the specialized connective tissues. Okay, so first let's start or begin with the loose connective tissue. So what are the loose connective tissues? Loose connective tissues has cells and fibers which are loosely arranged in a semi-fluid ground substance. Already I told you the connective tissue is composed of three important components. One is the cell, other one is the fibers and third one is the matrix. So what is this? What happens in a loose connective tissue is, this is the matrix. This is the matrix. In the matrix, you can find the cells which are suspended in a very loosely arranged manner. So the matrix is huge and the cells are very loosely arranged. They are not dense or compactly arranged. This is what we understand by this statement. Okay, so the cells are loosely arranged over here in the ground matrix or the ground substance. So this is the loose connective tissue. Did you understand what we mean by loose connective tissue? In the loose connective tissue, the cells are loosely arranged in a ground substance or matrix. The examples for loose connective tissue are areolar tissue and adipose tissue. Let's discuss the areolar tissue first. Areolar tissue. The areolar tissue is present just beneath the skin and it often serves as a support framework for the epithelium. So the skin is made up of epithelial cells, precisely compound epithelial cells, that is multiple layers of epithelial cells together form the skin. So beneath the skin we have the areolar tissue. So it is this areolar tissue which gives support to the epithelium which is present just above it. So if this is the skin, okay, first in the skin to certain to certain depth you will have the epithelial tissue and then just below that you can find the areolar tissue. Got it? So areolar tissue is present just beneath the epithelial cells, epithelial tissues, and that is why it gives support to the epithelial tissue. And then the areolar tissue is composed of fibroblasts, macrophages and mast cells. Areolar tissue is composed of fibroblast. What do you mean by fibroblast? These are the cells which produce and secrete fibers. So the name itself suggests fibro. Fibro means related to fibers, isn't it? So it is the fibroblast. These are the cells which secrete fibers. The fibers can be elastin, collagen, isn't it? So these kind of proteins, proteinaceous fibers are secreted by these cells called as the fibroblast. So if you see a areolar tissue, how will it look like? It will look like this. So in an areolar tissue, you can find the fibroblast. This green color cell which you see here, this is the fibroblast. And here they have indicated that secreting the fibers, right? So these are the fibers which it is secreting. Okay, so this is the fibroblast. Fibroblast is a cell which secretes fibers. It's as simple as that. So in an areolar tissue, we have fibroblast. Then we have macrophages. So these are the macrophages. So what are macrophages? Macrophages are an important cell in the immune system. What these macrophages do is, whenever a bacterium enters into a body, it will catch hold of that, engulf it and destroy the bacteria. So they are very important. They play a very important role in immune system. They are a part of our immune system. Okay, so this is about macrophages. In addition to that, we also have mast cells. So what are mast cells? Mast cells are also granular rich cells which secrete histamine and heparin. Histamine heparin. So the areolar tissue consists of fibroblasts, which are cells which secrete fibers. It also contains macrophages, which are the cells which destroy the bacteria which is entering into a body by engulfing them. Then in addition, it also has mast cells, which are cells which have granules in it. See, here you can see these are granulated cells. Mast cells are the granulated cells. They are also a part of our immune system. They are also our immune cell. What these mast cells do is they secrete histamine and heparin, which is again helpful in the immune reactions. Okay, so this is very important. Many times you will get a question. So mast cells secrete histamine and heparin and other options. Then you'll have to choose the right option as histamine and heparin. Okay, so the mast cell synthesize histamine and heparin. So shall we recall what are the different components of the areolar tissue? So in the areolar tissue, you can find a ground substance or a matrix in which you will find the cells like fibroblasts which secrete proteins called fibers, right? Fibroblasts secrete fibers, and then you have macrophages which destroy bacterial cells. They are a part of our immune system, and even mast cells which are granular in nature, they are also a part of our immune system and they secrete histamine and heparin. Fine. Next, moving on to the next loose connective tissue, that is adipose tissue. So what is adipose tissue? Adipose tissue is a loose connective tissue which is again present beneath the skin. So beneath our skin you can find the adipose tissue. In the prime function of the adipose tissue is storage of fat. Okay, so whatever food we eat, not all the food that we consume is getting converted to energy and it is getting utilized when we are doing activities. Because we consume lot of food, however, only a part of it gets converted to energy and it is getting used up when we are doing any physical activities. The rest of it is converted to fat. So whatever nutrients that is derived out of the food that we consume, only a part of it is utilized by the body for the activities which we are doing. Remaining nutrients are converted into fat and it is stored in this adipose tissue. And that is why this adipose tissue gives us insulation. It provides us protection from heat, cold, isn't it? Especially from cold. So it acts as an insulator. It keeps our body warm. So that is an important function of the adipose tissue. So if you have to see the single cell of adipose tissue, this is how it will look like. This is the nucleus and this is the fat storage area. So you can see the fat storage area is so huge. So it is in this area that the fat will get accumulated and it will be stored. Okay, so this is how the adipose tissue looks like. These are individual cells. Again, this is a matrix in which the individual cells are present. And then here also you can find fibers. Then you can find the fat globule. This inside the cell you will have a huge vacuole or a globule in which the fat, that is the nutrients which have been derived from the food but it has been unused, that will be stored in these regions. Okay, so did you understand the second loose connective tissue, adipose tissue? So under loose connective tissue we have two examples. First one is the areolar tissue and second one is the adipose tissue. So in the next lecture we will be discussing about the dense connective tissue as well as the specialized connective tissue. Okay, so until then, take care. I'll meet you back again in the next lecture.